You've got the business, you have a story to tell, but every time you try to build a brand or build your personal brand, something in it feels wrong, it feels forced. Well, you can relax because in today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how to build a personal brand that feels more authentic, more like you, and not something the algorithm has forced you into. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Keep Creating podcast. This is episode 6. And like I mentioned in the intro, we are talking about personal brands and how to be just a tiny bit more authentic, how to get over some of that cringiness that we addressed in episode 5. So my name is Larry. I have been an internet content creator, video person, whatever you want to call it, for the past 10 years. And if there's one thing I know how to do, it's talk to a camera. And if there's another thing I know how to do, it's how to be authentically yourself in front of the camera. If you see me on the internet, if you see me on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, I am 100% the exact same person online that I am in person. Now, caveats, I'm a little bit more outgoing on the internet because that's what you can do. But I would say the core of who I am, the jokes that I make, the things that I talk about, the characters that you see online are still all very true to me. And anyone who gets to know me in person can attest that I am the same online that I am in person. And I know for a fact that that is something that a lot of people struggle with. It seems like when the camera turns on, you want to turn into a different person. You want to exemplify this persona that you think the world wants you to be. Not the case here. We're breaking those myths down today. This is going to be a long one. Grab a drink, take a walk, do whatever you do whenever you listen to long podcast episodes, because this is one of those. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. So if you haven't gone back and listened to episode 5, I highly suggest you go back and listen to that one because it is a continuation development of the points that I made back then. So we'll bridge those two with our first point of talking about why building a personal brand online can sometimes feel cringe. And these are a few different points than the ones I mentioned last week. So first of all, the reason that a lot of people who begin to build personal brands online feel cringe is because they try to play a character. They are essentially trying to play up the best version of themselves or a version of themselves that is not completely authentic and true to who they are. This creates a disconnect because whenever you turn the camera on, you are entering a different mindset. Now, a lot of people do this subconsciously. They don't even realize that they're doing it. And the way that you break out of that is by becoming your full authentic self online. I know that sounds difficult, but one of the main tips that we talked about last week was getting in the habit of recording yourself. And by that, I mean like setting up a camera and either practicing talking to it or setting up a camera and then going about your normal everyday life. These are things that will help you get used to a camera just being around, a camera being present, and you don't even have to think about it. Eventually, as you do this and you get your reps in and you practice, you will get more and more comfortable with a camera being around, with a camera being on you and talking to a camera. This will help you become more of your actual authentic self on camera, which will then help you become that person online. The other reason that sometimes this content feels cringy is because it can seem or feel forced. Now, I believe that most people, when they're watching a video, can tell whether or not the person was actually interested in creating that video. Most of the time when things feel awkward or weird or, just off when you're watching a video, a lot of it comes down to the attitude and the energy that the person had whenever they were making the video. And not to get woo woo on anyone, but I am one of those people that believes that energy just translates through video and imagery. And if you don't want to be there, you don't want to make the video, you don't want to be a part of the production, it can throw everything off. It can throw the vibe off, the energy off. People talk different. It becomes weird and just gives what the kids nowadays call the ick. So I would highly suggest that whenever you are creating the video and whenever you are creating your personal branding content, that you make sure that you're in the right headspace. Make sure you're in the right energy space so that the good vibes, the warm vibes, the energy that you want to uh, show your audience really shines through that content. And the final point in this section is that most people now, when they're starting their personal brand content creation journey, they're watching, they're observing, they're seeing all of these other successful people who are pushing their personal brands with amazing, beautiful, stylized content, and they want to create that. They want to be like those people. And I don't blame you. The successful people that we see makes us want to imitate them. That's part of the allure of building a personal brand. However, I am going to be one of those people that says you do not need to be a copy of anyone else. It's so easy to copy someone else. But I heard someone else say this, and whenever you copy someone, you'll at best be number two. You need to be yourself. And the way that I think most people can achieve this is to start with your communication style. I'll take myself for an example. I am someone who is much better in person. And when I can't be in person, it's video. And if I can't be in video, I'm going to video or audio record what I'm thinking, my point, and then I will transcribe that and then put that into words. That is the best communication style for me. I'm one of those people that likes to talk things out, who likes to go the long way, speaking wise, and then put things down onto paper. I live very much in my head, and if I can take this information and put it in a video or put it in an audio recording, and then using technology take that and put it into words that are easier for people to read or break it down into different formats, that is something that I am going to do. But that's just me. There are some people who are way better at writing. That is their gift, that is their talent, and they can do that. I would say if that's your gift, write down everything. And then if you're doing audio, video, read it or get a teleprompter or memorize it enough to where you can speak it on video. There are so many different ways that people can take their natural communication style and translate it to other styles. Or if you have the resources, hire someone or have someone help you take it and translate it into those different formats. There is no reason in 2025 why you cannot get your message out in the way that is most natural for you. Written content is still performing very well on platforms like LinkedIn and Substack. Obviously, video is performing well across most of the social media platforms because they're all going to that way. Photos are still very, very powerful when used in the right platform and context. There's no reason that you can't use your natural communication style and translate it into something that is more palatable for the masses. Now that we've addressed the cringiness and the awkward phase of building a personal brand, let's move on to the next step, which is clarifying your brand voice. We're going to do this by asking ourselves three main questions. The first question is, what language would I normally use when I'm speaking to family, friends, or interested clients? This is going to be different than industry jargon or language that you would use talking to peers. Again, I'll use myself as the example. I'm someone who loves cameras and video and photo and audio equipment. I could probably rattle off a couple names and terms and things that people in my industry, colleagues, would understand. However, these are terms and things that most everyday people who are not into these things the way that I am would not understand. This is not helpful for that person to get on my level. If anything, it feels like you're speaking down to someone. There's no need in a business meeting for me to tell a client, yeah, we're gonna shoot 4K 30. We're gonna use ISO whatever. We're gonna be shooting in S-Log 3 with this color Like, no one needs to know any of that. That is not helpful for them. What is more helpful for them is we're going to film in a profile. We're going to film in a way that's going to make your videos look really good. We're going to have nice, vibrant color. The quality is going to be excellent. It's going to be high quality. We are going to shoot in 4K. I would say that because most people understand the difference between 4K and 1080 at this point. But as far as like all of the extra technical jargon, we're going to use this shutter speed and this ISO at this aperture. They don't need to know that. And the same thing goes for other people whenever they're speaking to their ideal clients. I don't expect a baker to tell me the exact ingredients that they're going to use or the type of convection oven that they're going to use to bake my goods. I don't expect my lawyer to use language that is way above my head where I'll need a dictionary or thesaurus to even follow the conversation. This is the same across all branding. Whenever you can speak to someone on their level and use language that they understand without them having to go get a dictionary or, figure out what you mean when what you're talking about, the better the relationship is, the more they trust you. They feel like, you're not someone who's above them, you're someone who's with them. Use this whenever you're developing your brand voice. It's okay to know those technical terms. It's okay to know the big language, but you either need to be explaining it while you're talking, or you need to be using language that your normal, everyday customer, person, family, friend could understand. The second question, whenever you're developing your brand voice, is you understand and you ask yourself, what values or principles am I not willing to budge on? What do I stand for? Whenever someone thinks of me or thinks of my brand, what are they gonna think of, and what are my values that I'm not willing to move on? Using myself as the example, one of the things that I tell all of my clients, all of anyone that I work with, is that I refuse to half-ass something. Plain and simple. I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure that whatever I do comes out as close to right or perfect as I possibly could make it. Sometimes that means that I may push back. Sometimes that means that I'm going to be a little late. Sometimes that means that I might go over on hours or time or deliverables. But that's because I have a personal standard of my work that I want to deliver, and I refuse to deliver anything less. Great example. I just did an event coverage video for a client. They wanted, a just a 1 minute vertical video. I delivered two versions of that video, one with audio sound and one that was just completely B-roll. Some people would say that they would have charged for that extra video. They would have charged for the extra time to put that together. Not me. The third question that we're going to ask ourselves whenever we're building our brand voice is, what is a consistent thread? What is a consistent message that our ideal clients would say whenever they're working with us? One of the things that I love to hear my clients say is that Larry went above and beyond. That's one. The second is, Larry was so nice to work with. These are two things that I think help build my personal brand beyond just the quality of my work. I do want my quality of work to be high. However, I know that sometimes I'm limited by gear or knowledge or just technical expertise. That's just the nature of the game of what I do. But what I don't want people to say is, Larry was difficult to work with. That's not who I want to be. And so whenever I show up to a job, whenever I perform a service or I show up at a job, I want people to have a positive reflection of me. I want to be on my P's and Q's. I want to be nice, professional, friendly. I want them to say they had a good experience. And then the follow-up is the work. because I have heard too many times in the industry or just in general that if people are difficult to work with, it doesn't matter the quality of the work that you provided. If you're just hard to work with, if you're an asshole, if you're somebody who's not great to be around, they're not going to bring you back. So that's one of mine. I encourage you to take these questions and really think about, the answers that you have, really come up with something, write them down, write your answers down somewhere, and really try to embody that whenever you are building your personal brand online and in person. The reason it's important to answer these questions is because the reason it's important to answer these questions is because it's going to help you build your brand voice and your communication style. It's going to help you show up the most authentic that you can online and in person. You want those two to blend and tie together. Building this brand voice and tying it to who you are authentically will help that cohesion whenever you are in person versus when you are online. And what you want is, like I mentioned in the very beginning, for someone to say that the person that you show up as online is the same person that you are in person. All right, you've gotten over your cringiness and you've developed your brand voice. You've decided what you want to sound like and who you are going to be. The third point that we're going to make in this episode, whenever you're building your personal brand identity and content online, is learning to balance personal storytelling with professional credibility. In previous episodes, I talked about being vulnerable and sharing your authentic self and your authentic stories whenever you are creating that brand and creating those visuals and videos. I also mentioned that you need to have boundaries and guardrails and things that you are willing to not talk about or lines that you are not willing to cross. Again, I use myself a lot in these examples, but I also have a client example. One of the things that I talk about a lot is uh, in real life and sometimes online is my family and the way that my family dynamic has, shaped who I am. Sometimes I record my daily life. I'm a new dad, and so I talk about that a lot now. And sometimes I even show my daughter in some of the content. I believe she actually joined me mid episode for episode one if you watched it. But those are things that are really important to me. There are lines when showing and talking about my family that I will not cross. Um, you know, I can say that my wife is a social worker, but I'll never say where she works. You know, I will say my daughter's first name. I don't think I'll ever say my daughter's middle name in these videos or online outside of our initial post on my personal social media. Um, or if I've said it, I don't think that I'll say it again. Um, I'll show her face because she's a part of, my family, and that's something that my wife and I have decided that is okay for us. However, I don't think that I will be sharing, super personal details about her online. There are lines that I'm not willing to cross whenever it comes to talking about and sharing information about my family online. Again, I mentioned that I am in Denver. That is because one, I am a local service based business. That's something that I pride myself on, and I know that saying the city where I live in is very helpful to clients. I will not tell you which apartment I live in or what part of the city I live in. I just think that that's weird unless we're on the phone or I'm establishing an actual personal relationship with you. There are levels and lines that I just don't think are safe to cross whenever you are talking about yourself or things online. For client examples, for additional examples, I know there are people who are parents who do not share their kids online. That's a line that they're not willing to cross. They don't want the internet to know their kid's name. They don't want the internet to know what their kid looks like, and that's perfectly fine. I think what's most important about this is learning where those lines are for you, setting those boundaries and guardrails, and protecting them. The main reason that you're setting this up first is that you know how far you're willing to go. You know how vulnerable you are willing to get online in your personal brand. Knowing this and setting these boundaries can help you maintain professional distance whenever you're telling your personal stories, much like I'm doing right now. I'm very much telling personal details about my business, how I operate, what I do, but I am refusing to cross certain boundaries and give away certain details. This helps show that I'm still a professional. I'm a human and I can be vulnerable and I can share all these personal details with you, but at the end of the day, I'm still a business owner. I'm still operating in a professional setting. I know what I'm talking about and I can be personable without oversharing or giving away too much information. This way, we're building a respectable amount of trust. I think that a lot of people get carried away online, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, and I'll talk about it in person if we ever talk about it. But I think that too many people are giving away too much of themselves, too much information online. Now, this next thing is one that I need to work on personally. It's something that a lot of other people have perfected, but it's the framework of telling your personal story, providing that professional insight, and then capping it off with an actionable takeaway. This is something that I'm hoping to get better at by actually producing these podcast episodes is that I am telling you my personal story, telling you how I run my business and walking through some of these examples that I use personally in my business with you, providing that professional insight. I'm providing, those details and frameworks and how things work and how I'm observing the business world and business, how I'm observing how the industry and everything is operating right now through my lens. And at the end of the episodes, or even in the show notes, or if you're following along and taking notes, some of the things that I say are actionable insight steps. Some of the things that I'm saying are actionable items that you can actually take and implement into your journey, your content, or your business. All of this to say that whenever you are telling your personal stories, you're being vulnerable. This is all in an effort to build trust. Whenever you can build trust with someone, you are more likely to be able to just talk to them and sell them without having to be super salesy. One of the things that a lot of people get wrong about creating content and building personal brands online is that they need to overshare and become super trustworthy and just give the internet and their audience every piece of detail about them so that they can become trustworthy. I think that that's wrong. You should be giving away certain parts of yourself, telling certain parts of your story, but definitely not your whole self. That's not fair to you or your family or anything like that. And by all means, do what you want to do. If you're one of those people that tells the internet everything or gives away everything, you do you, but not for me. Whenever you are sharing this and you're building that trust, when you do it consistently, when you show up as the same person who is sharing a similar story, who is talking about the same things, actually helping people, you're building that trust. That trust is more likely to help you whenever you do take someone from top of funnel into your funnel and into your business and down the rabbit hole of working with you. Essentially, what you're doing is every time you're showing up as this person, holding these boundaries, building this trust, is that you are adding deposits into your credibility bucket. Once someone has received enough deposits into their credibility bucket, they become trustworthy. They become a resource. Hopefully that's what I'm doing with this podcast. You're spending a lot of time with me if you're watching/listening to all of these all the way through. I am making deposits into the credibility bucket. And essentially what that means is that whenever you have built up enough trust, credibility, people see you as a resource. They see you as someone who they can rely on, someone who they trust for information. Eventually, as things move on, as people move further and further into your content, when you have an offer, when you have something that is worth value to them and it costs money, if it is within that person's budget, they know you, they like you, they trust you, they're more likely to make that purchase. They're more likely to accept your offer and go down that journey with you. Over the last 2 weeks, I've had talks with three specific clients that I've worked with, and all three of them have told me a very similar story that I've shared many, many times before. But it is the story of they have just been showing up consistently, authentically, as themselves. And eventually, there are people who work with them. They do not engage. There's no engagement from these people on social media. There's no this person liked every video. There's no this person is leaving comments on all my videos. It's just they reach out and they mention, I've been following you for a while. I've been watching your videos. I've been listening to what you've been saying. And I think that it's time for us to work together. I've heard this message 3 times in the past 2 weeks from 3 separate clients who don't know each other. This is so powerful because the clients that they have, the clients that they're talking about who just watch and then convert out of nowhere are the people that you're trying to reach. The people that are engaging on social media are important. I do believe that engagement online is important to help build credibility and trust and just, personal relationships so people can see who you are online. However, I know for a fact, because I've heard it from 3 separate clients and it's also happened to me, that there are the silent lurkers out there who are just watching and absorbing the information that you say. They're listening to you. You are becoming their resource. And when the time is right, when there's enough deposits in the credibility bucket, you are going to be the person that they reach out to because you are the person they think about who can help them solve that problem. The key, the trick, the caveat to this entire story is that it takes time. The people that I'm talking about, the clients that I'm talking about, and I've referenced for this, have been putting out their message consistently for months, if not years. One of them has been consistent for 2 of them actually have been consistent for years, showing up several times a week, delivering their message, delivering their value, speaking their truth, and building that authority. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to make 5 videos and suddenly become the authority figure in that industry. You're not going to make 15. You might not even make 50 videos and become the authority. And that's okay. You're building trust, you're building credibility, and that takes time, and that's okay. The next point that we're talking about is the danger of copying other people. As someone who creates content online, I watch a ton of creators online, and I find new ones all the time. People are doing amazing things, and they're creating their own original ideas, original content, original formats now even. And I, for one, think it's amazing. What I don't want other people to do, and what I tell myself all the time, is you do not want to copy. You want to draw inspiration. So whenever you are looking at content and you're like, man, that looks amazing, I really want to create something like that. It's important that you understand the power of concepts and principles and that you're able to translate those into something that works for you. I love Gary Vee, Myron Golden, Omar El Takori. There's a lot of other people there, and I'm watching them and I'm learning. But what I'm doing more than that is that I am picking apart how they're doing things. I'm not looking at the gear that they have. I'm not looking at necessarily the things that they talk about. But what I am paying attention to is, what's that format? What is the structure of that hook? What's the structure of their video? How are they able to keep my attention outside of just the fact that I'm interested in this topic? What are they saying? What are the keywords or the phrasing or the timing that they're using? These are things that I'm paying attention to help myself get better whenever I'm creating videos. I think we live in a time where it's very easy to copy people because of the nature of trends on Instagram or TikTok where everyone's just doing the same thing. But what we're finding out more and more every single day is that people, and even now the algorithms, because the algorithm is just a reflection of actual people, are looking for more authentic and originality, are looking for more authenticity and originality in content, and not just following the trends, doing the same thing that everyone's doing. Yes, creating the trend and following the trend can sometimes get you attention or followers. However, they're not building your true fan base. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again. I heard that whenever you decide to copy someone, whenever you decide to rip off someone's idea or complete video or anything, you can be the best copy of them, but at best, you'll be number two. You'll never get to be number one. You'll never get to be the very best version of that because you'll be copying someone else. They will be number one and you will be number two at best. For some people, they can live with that. For me, I want to be known as the one and only, the best at what I do in the way that I do it. Using inspiration, not imitation, is a part of the way that I create content, and it's something that I highly advise for my clients. I hope you guys are still with me. This has been a long episode, but our final point for the day is learning to see your brand as a filter. The final point of the day is learning to see your brand as a filter, not a costume. As I mentioned all throughout this episode, there are people who become a different version of themselves. They put on a mask or a costume whenever they begin creating content or a camera turns on them. What they should be doing, what it's worth practicing to do, is use your brand as a filter. Use the persona that you want to portray or show online as a filter for your authentic true self, not masquerading who you actually are. This can be difficult, but it's important that you learn how to do it so that you can maintain your brand consistency online, and you can protect your online persona from your real life without making the two different or completely separate. And I hope that makes sense. That's a funny way to say that. But whenever you are deciding what your personal brand is going to be and who you're going to be online, this can help you define that, put that into a section of your life, and keep those boundaries that we talked about building earlier in the brand voice section, keep those up and those guardrails up so that you can know what areas and what things you can talk about, what things you can be vulnerable about without breaking those walls or those boundaries, and continuing to build that trust. In a very similar vein, if you are a more creative person, I know that most people who are in this space are multifaceted, multi-talented individuals. I talk about branding and marketing and things like that on this channel in this space, but I also have a completely different channel where I talk about the tech and the gadgets and the things that I use to make videos and tell stories. There's a version of me that plays music. There's a version of me that likes certain types of video games. There are different versions and types of people within us. A lot of us are multifaceted individuals. However, using our brand as a filter helps us know what part of each piece of this whole person that we can pull from in this instance in order to get a message out. I can use music analogies to talk to people who understand music. I can use tech analogies to communicate with people who are more into the tech and the gadgets. And I can use marketing and social media and content terminologies and analogies and things to communicate with other people who are in this space. And I can tie all of these things and pick and choose which parts of myself I'm able to filter through the lens of this personal brand in order to reach and talk to and communicate to my ideal client. I can show up as my authentic self. I can wear a sweatshirt that says photographer when I'm talking about marketing and content creation, because it all ties together for me. It's all a part of my personal brand. It's all a part of who I am, and it's filtered through the lens of the conversation. And I think more than anything, it helps expand my brand. It helps me reach and be able to talk to different people. It keeps me out of just the marketing, content creation, social media box. And that's really important. And that's really important, especially when we come back to the idea of building trust with people. You know, everyone you talk to is going to be interested in multiple things, not just necessarily your service or your brand. I can go into almost any business and find something to talk about with a person to continue a conversation. Those conversations could or could not lead to work. But the most important thing that I want people to remember about me, like I said earlier, is that I'm a nice person, I'm easy to work with, and I'm easy to get along with, and I'm a genuine person. Those are things that, whenever I can talk music with people, there's a connection there. If I can talk cameras or content or any like cameras or gadgets or tech with people, there's a connection. And all of those things could or could not lead to business, but hopefully they lead to a pleasant interaction. And that, my friends, is what building a personal brand is actually all about. Brand is essentially, what do people think about whenever they hear your name? Whew. I know that was a long episode. I know that there is a ton of information that I've talked about in here. Thank you for making it all the way here. I greatly, greatly appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, I would greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any questions or you want to start conversations around what we talked about, there is the comment section down below if you're on a video platform. If you're just listening, I would appreciate a review, 5 stars recommended on your podcast platform of choice. I will be back next week with episode 7. Thank you again. I know I say thank you a lot, especially at the end of these videos, but I greatly, greatly appreciate your time and attention for listening, paying attention, and, just hanging out with me. So I appreciate you. Until next time, always remember to do the work, believe in yourself, and most importantly, because it's the name of this podcast, keep creating. Peace.